Welcome to the Sleep Sense Show. As always, brought to you by the Sleep Sense program, where podcast listeners can get a free customized sleep plan by going to www.sleepsense.net/listen.
Hi, I'm Dana. Welcome to the show. I want to tell you a little story about a past client I had whose name was Roxanne. The first time she called me, the first thing she said was that she believed in attachment parenting. And that is absolutely fine with me. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But for her, the fact that she was even calling me, I think felt like a little bit of a betrayal to her philosophy. She was very, very concerned about the idea of sleep training her child because she'd been basically indoctrinated to believe that any kind of sleep training is somehow harmful or detrimental to her relationship with her son. And I've heard this discussion before, and it will most likely to continue to be a discussion. But in my opinion, believing in an attachment parenting model and sleep training your child don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I'm going to go into this a little deeper with you today. But first, I want to finish my story about Roxanne. So she was very worried. And I absolutely could understand her concerns. And I explained to her the best way I could about my approach and that, yes, there would most likely be some protests because we're going to be changing the sleep habits of a human being. And every human being would have some resistance to that because we are we're so protective and habitual about our nighttime routines that making changes to anybody's sleep habits would be met with some resistance and protest. And she understood that intellectually, she really did. But again, there was just all this emotion, all this sort of emotional baggage around what we would be doing together and how that would impact her son. Now, her son was 1 year old, and he was sharing a bed with her and basically nursing pretty much every hour all throughout the night. And her husband had moved to the spare room because he couldn't get any good quality sleep with all this movement and fussing going on with their child, which is a very common scenario in the bed sharing experience. And she was feeling the effects of it. I mean, apart from, this ideological belief she had in the kind of parent she wanted to be, she was also smart enough to recognize that she was struggling, that not sleeping well was affecting her emotionally and physically and mentally, and that there was a little bit of bubbling up resentment going on here because she was the one up repeatedly in the night and her husband wasn't. And also this child was preventing her from getting a fundamental human need, right? Like that, we have to get to the bottom of the issue here, people. And that is that sleep is a fundamental human need. We have to have sleep. We cannot live without it. And I mean that very literally. So the person who's stopping her from getting this need is, it makes sense to me that on some level, you're going to have some at least low-level resentment for the person who's preventing it. And that wasn't sitting right with her. And so she was in this really conflicted place. So I never force anyone to do anything they don't want to. That's not my belief. I'm not here to convert people. I'm only here to help. And so I explained to her, again, we would do this as gently as possible, and I would be there with her every step of the way, and we would, we could and we would improve this situation with minimal upset to the child as best we could do. I don't have magic powers nor a magic wand, so I wanted her to be clear that, yeah, this is going to be some hard work. It's going to be a challenge, a tough spot to teach this child to sleep well and to sleep independently is going to be a process. It's a skill set just like any other, and that's going to take some time. So eventually she hired me, and we went through the process together. It required a lot of encouragement on my part, support on my part, cheerleading on my part. And the good news is that we did teach our son to sleep well and independently, and ended up getting him out of her bed and into his own crib, and returned her husband to her bed, and everybody benefited from the process. And after the fact, she became really one of my top advocates. She told everybody she knew and all the people in her attachment parenting group, and was just really vocal about the experience, because she could see that in theory it's lovely, but in reality it's not always. And that if you're struggling and you're feeling the effects of sleep deprivation after an entire year or even months, that it doesn't have to be one or the other, that you don't have to sacrifice a human need, as a martyr for this higher purpose or this bigger ideology that you want to uphold or adhere to. And that was, she actually ended up having 2 other children down the road and hired me again for both of those children as well, so that we could get them off to a great sleep start right from the beginning. So I just want to highlight that experience, because, that is sort of the crux of people who sort of call themselves or stand behind this movement called attachment parenting, that you can't ever have good sleep again. And I'm here to tell you that I don't believe that is true. So if you're not sure what attachment parenting actually even means, if you're not familiar with it, it is a parenting philosophy that was made popular by Dr. William Sears and his wife Martha in a 1903 publication of a book called The Baby Book. The idea, and I'm just going to nutshell it, if you want to go and Google it, there's lots of information about the depths of this philosophy, but in a nutshell, it's to maximize closeness and responsiveness. So there's a lot of suggestion that you wear your baby everywhere you go, that you share a bed with your baby, that you breastfeed on demand until the child weans independently, and you answer every cry immediately. And the theory goes on to suggest that by doing all of those things, you will create a strong attachment between the mother and the baby, which will result in well-adjusted children who grow up happy, healthy, and contributing members of society. Well, right? That all sounds absolutely lovely. I always wonder, I don't think there's any parent out there that wants to be a detached parent, right? We all want to have a healthy attachment to our children, and we want our children to have a healthy attachment to us. And I feel like part of the issue here is that this very sentence, that it creates a strong attachment between mother and baby, and that's putting a lot of pressure on mother, in my opinion. And if we lived in communities where everyone helped out, I believe that it does take a village to raise a child, but the sad reality is we don't live in villages. Many of us live, not even close to family. We live very isolated lives. And so when we put this kind of workload onto a mother, it can be pretty taxing. And I've seen it multiple times where it just wears a mother down. I mean, you'd have to be a superwoman to be able to do this and not have it affect you in any kind of a way. And really, in reality, I mean, we could have a all-day debate about the pros and cons of this approach, but there's really no strong evidence that shows that attachment parenting is any better or any worse than any other kind of parenting styles out there. And so, again, like I said, if you want to look more into it, then I would encourage you to. But basically, Dr. Sears has sort of, he calls them the 7 Bs, which is kind of a cheat sheet or a bullet point list of the basic principles of attachment parenting. So let me tell you what they are. The first one is birth bonding. Now, I think that I'm not 100% sure what that means. I would imagine that means, putting your baby skin to skin when you have the birthing experience. Breastfeeding, baby wearing, bedding close to baby, belief in the language value of a baby's cry, beware of sleep trainers, we'll come back to that one, and balance. So those are the basic 7 Bs. Well, the first 3, sure, that really has nothing to do with sleep training. You can bond with your baby as much as you want and breastfeed day in and day out for as long as you choose. I really never jump into and start telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing with their breastfeeding. I leave that decision fully to you to make your own decisions. Baby wearing, I can get behind that even in the first, certainly in the first 3 months of life. Wearing your baby is handy in lots of ways. Babies usually sleep quite lovely there. It's not a problem in my opinion. I think as a child gets a little older, it might become a little hard on your back eventually. And also I think that it's important that children learn to sleep in a motionless and flat surface. Studies show that we actually do sleep better when we are in a flat location that doesn't move. So that could start affecting the quality of sleep down the road. The 3 that follow are the ones that tend to give attachment parenting advocates pause when they start to think about sleep training. So sleeping close to your baby, obviously that means bed sharing, which is a big part of the philosophy. And, the consensus from me is that, and my colleagues and everybody else in the baby sleep world, is that babies sleep better, and so do their parents when they're in their own bed. In fact, everybody sleeps better when they're in their own bed. That's just a scientifically studied fact that we all end up having more restorative sleep when we're on our own. But, that's life, and we usually share beds with people, and we can get used to it. But more people in bed means more movement, and more movement means more wake-ups, and we just lose out on that deep sleep piece of our cycle that's so important for feeling good in the morning. Now, if you are happily bed sharing with your children and your husband's happy and everyone's on board and feeling pretty good and getting adequate sleep, then good for you. I'm happy, right? I'm not telling you what's right and wrong. I'm just saying, evaluate your situation. If you are feeling effects, let that be the truth, right? Don't try to bury it or martyr yourself on and in this fashion of I can handle it or this is what I signed up for, or any kind of martyrdom. That's not necessary. And also have a look at the family unit. If your husband's been sleeping on the couch for the past 6 months, that's not an example of bed sharing working well. That's not maintainable. It's not good for your relationship. Any way you slice it, it's just not good to have one parent alienated to the spare room while you bed share with your baby. So if that's the case, then I would encourage you to make some decisions around that what's at the core best for your family. And don't look at everybody else and compare yourself. Just look inwards and see within your family, would something be going better if we improved the sleep situation? And if your answer is yes, then yay, then I can help you with that. So then we look at the next B, which is the belief in the language value of cries. Absolutely. I also believe in the language values of cries. It's an evolutionary piece of brilliance, really, that babies cry, right? We wouldn't maybe even notice if they hadn't eaten in several hours, or perhaps they had a poopy diaper. If they didn't cry to alert us of their needs, some of us would forget, right? We would. And so a baby cries, it annoys us, we are moved to do something, and we do. So that is brilliant, genius. However, as a baby grows older, cries are not just happening because of needs now, they're also happening for wants, right? Your 8-month-old really wants to put your car keys in his mouth. He cannot bear the thought of not doing that. you know your car keys are filthy and you don't want him to put them in his mouth. All right, now you've got a problem. Your want, his want. Who's going to be the winner here? I hope it's you, right? So yes, babies cry because they have needs, and they also cry because they have wants. And that is valuable, and that is their prerogative, and they are absolutely entitled to have all kinds of feelings and experiences and emotions. But that does not mean as a parent that we should give in to all of them. When we're talking about communication, yeah, guess what? When you are about to train your baby to sleep well and to sleep without their sleep prop, yeah, guess what? They're going to be upset. It makes sense. Again, when we think about our own sleep habits, if I came into your room tonight and said, hey, you know what? For the sake of better sleep, you're going to sleep on the other side of the bed. I'm going to switch out your pillow. I'm going to put music on. Whatever it is that's a change in your sleep habit and environment, it's going to cause some anxiety. There's just no way around it, people. I wish there was, but there isn't. And so we're not going to nurse your 15-month-old to sleep anymore, and he's going to have an issue with that at first. As he learns how to put the pieces of his own sleep skills together, there will most likely be some upset on their part. And that's where people get snagged, right? People don't like the idea that their baby's going to be upset, and I don't like that idea either. I still don't. I have teenagers now. I don't particularly love it when they're upset, but being upset is a part of a human experience. And that is something we all have to learn how to deal with and go through, and it's just a fact of life. Now, in the Sleep Sense program, and what I teach all of my consultants is that there's no real reason why a parent has to leave while a child learns this process. We can stay, we can be supportive, we can be encouraging, we can add some level of comfort to this experience as they learn. So if that's the bottom line for you, that it's just the leaving piece that's really bothering you, then hey, pick up a copy of the Sleep Sense program and problem solved. You can be there the entire time because it has nothing to do with you. It's all about learning a skill set, learning to sleep well and independently. Now let's go back to the the one that makes me cringe slightly, and that's the beware of baby trainers. I'm assuming he's talking about me and other sleep coaches. I've been in this business now for almost 15 years. I've certified about 150 other Sleep Sense consultants all around the globe. And I can tell you at the core of who we all are, it's that we want to help. It's that we've been there ourselves. We knew how hard it was. We knew the effects it was having on our physical, emotional, and mental health. We saw how it was impacting our relationships with our spouse and our friends, and even our own child. And we took some steps to improve the situation. So we've been there. We know what it's like. And we're not in this for the money or trying to fool parents or pull one over on parents. I can tell you with all that I am, at the core of who we are, it's that we want to help. We know that there's a solution, right? You don't have to suffer. You don't have to grin and bear it. That if you want to, in a relatively short period of time, you can teach your child to sleep well and reap the benefits. And not just you. We're not just in this for ourselves. It's for the whole family. It's for the child, and it's for the family unit itself. So, I guess what bothers me about that statement is that we're somehow pulling wool over people's eyes or being dishonest or deceptive or something negative in the actual word beware, right? When I think of beware of bears, for example, bears might harm me. But that's not, we work with people when they're their most frazzled, desperate moments, and it's challenging work, right? It's hard to help walk someone through an experience when they're frazzled and depleted and emotional. And that can be hard work for us. But the reward is that at the end of the experience, we get the email that says, thank you. We get the email that says, you changed my life. And we get the email that says, you're a miracle worker, even though they're the ones that did all the hard work. But that's why we do it, so that we see these end results and we send frazzled, depleted, emotional moms mostly and see them leave better, for the better. Right? And then the last of the B's is balance, which I find interesting. I believe in balance. Absolutely. That's one of the main pieces I preach as a parenting expert, is that we've got to find balance here. We've got to make sure we're meeting our own needs. We need to make sure that we teach our children that we also have needs, that it's not just about them. Balance is huge, people. Like that's like core value number 3 for me, this balance piece. But when I look at the theory or the belief around attachment parenting, I find it hard to see the balance in that. I find it difficult to see a balance where I'm wearing this baby everywhere, I'm sleeping in the same bed with this baby, I'm nursing whenever this child chooses, I am responding immediately to every whimper. That feels out of balance. I know for me, if I try to envision doing all that, I'm quickly blown over by the responsibility and the burden of it all. And that's, I feel like that would be very tricky. You would definitely have to have a ruthless handle on your own needs so that you could get a break periodically. You'd have to be pretty ruthless with asking your partner to help out as much as possible. I think it would be really tricky to check all these things off the list for what makes you an attachment parent and still find balance in that. You know, one of my favorite quotes about parenting is by Jill Churchill, who says, "There is no way to be a perfect mother and a million ways to be a good one." And I put that out a lot on my social media because I think it's so important for every new mother to keep hold of that, right? That we cannot be perfect. We cannot do everything right. And really, what is even right? That's even a hard word to define when we're talking about our children. We obviously want the best for them. Their needs are high on our priority list, but so we can't lose sight of ourselves in all of this. It breaks my heart when I see moms who just lose themselves, right? They're completely consumed by this child. You know, they're not taking care of themselves. They're not nurturing their marriage or their relationship. And it's not, you can't maintain that. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Another one of my favorite quotes, that you need to fill your own cup so that you can give to others in a way that feels good, not in a way that feels like you're being a martyr, you're feeling resentments. All of those things aren't healthy. And everyone feels it. There's no way to hide that you're feeling some sort of low-level resentment. So I just want to close by saying, you know what? Parents are unique, just like babies. All babies are different. There's no perfect recipe for ultimate parenting. You know, there's no way to ensure that our children are going to grow up and be successful, happy, content, good contributors to society. I mean, there's no surefire way to make sure that that is going to happen. In some ways, it's a little bit of a gamble, right? Nothing in life is permanent and nothing is guaranteed. So we are all just in it to do our best, and there's always ways to improve. I just want to encourage you that if you feel like you're struggling, right? That is not easy. And I'm not saying that it's ever easy, but if you feel like, if you're being honest with yourself, you're feeling a bit, down or depleted or frazzled or exhausted or emotional, that there are ways to make that better. And maybe the sleep sense approach is not the way, and that is fine with me, but I would encourage you to start looking around and seeing if you can find something that makes sense to you that you could get behind. And just remember our gal Roxanne from the story earlier, that once you get through it and you see how impactful sleeping well, sometimes we forget, right? We've been not sleeping well for so long, we forget what it feels like to sleep well. But once you see the benefits to everyone in a family, I mean, again, people, we need to remember this is a fundamental human need. Thanks for listening to me today. Thanks for your time. And as always, please sleep well.
Thanks so much for listening. For more great tips on helping your child sleep through the night, remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher, and never miss an episode.